I'd like to call this meeting to order, the November meeting, November 5th, 2019. Nadia, can you call the quorum, please?
Harren Basie,
Here.
Marshall Ballard, Marcus Simmons, Pat Doherty,
Here.
Don Black,
Here.
Ann Shout,
Here.
Sonny Aluzo,
Here.
Margie Dunn,
Here.
Raymond Mason. We have a quorum.
Okay. I would like to go to new business. The Belle Oaks project is put off till next month, so the first item we have on the agenda is the Overlook Holdings requesting final subdivision approval for Carolina Colours Verdant. It is a 44 lot major subdivision, and can we have the staff review of that, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant, Overlook Holdings LLC, is requesting the Planning and Zoning Board approve a 44-lot final subdivision plan. It's named, the name of the project is Carolina Colours Verdant, or Verdant, I guess. Kip will straighten me out on that one. It's located on the US 70 Waterscape Way, intersection through that area at the extension of Onyx Lane. It's currently zoned residential 8. Size is about 31 acres. Again, 44 single-family residential lots. It received preliminary subdivision approval from the Planning and Zoning Board on August 3rd of 2017. Average size of each lot is about 24,900 square feet of an average. And all utilities will be provided by the City of New Bern. As I said, I tried to give you a location of where it's at. That's Waterscape Way to the north, that loop. 70 is over off to the right. That extension there where you see those rutted out roads is where that subdivision is going to be, the extension of Onyx Lane. A copy of the subdivision plan that's in your packet. Staff has reviewed the final subdivision plan for Carolina Colours Verdant and finds the project meets all the requirements of Section 1579 of the Land Use Ordinance of the City of New Bern and therefore recommends approval of this major subdivision. That is it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Does the applicant wish to address this project to the board at all? Okay. Do members of the board have any comments or questions at this point on this project? Having heard none, is there any proponents of this public that would like to make comments on this project? Having heard none, are there any people against approving this project from the public that would like to make public comment? Having heard none, I would like to return it to the board members for further discussion. If there is none, I would like to entertain a motion to approve this development as outlined in the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve this as is outlined in the agenda.
Second.
Seconded. Having a motion seconded, at this point I would like to take a vote. All those in favor of this application say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion, it's the judgment of the chairman that the motion passed. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the Planning and Zoning Board's rules and procedures. Can the staff outline this for us,
Sure.
please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we've said at the last meeting, we were going to bring this before you all to discuss. The Planning and Zoning Board is within its powers authorized through the Land Use Ordinance to create its own rules and procedures. I gave in your packet was the resolution and the rules of procedures for our Board of Aldermen. I wanted the board to review it, and I hope you had a chance to do so. The ones in your packet are much more robust than I would imagine the Planning and Zoning Board would be interested in. I've gone through it myself, and I'm trying to think about how to present this to you all. We can either go through it and I can just give you my recommendation on where we should, what things that we could think about, or Mr. Chair, I thought maybe it might be more useful of everybody's time is if we just create a small subcommittee, maybe 1 or 2 people on the board to meet with me for an hour at the most, maybe for a couple, maybe 2 times, before the next meeting, where we can just bang this out and present the board a more coherent rules and procedures. So it's up to you all. I'm prepared to go through it now. I'm not sure the utility of that. Thinking it through again, I think it might be best if we just, a couple people just sit down with me and we can go through it and bang something out that's we can go from on the next meeting. So it's up to you.
Regardless of what we do, any changes we make here are subject to the review of the alderman. That we just be making recommendations for this, and the alderman would have to approve it because it is part of the land use ordinance.
Well, what I would do is include the city attorney in those meetings. And again, these are your rules and procedures. Do not have to be approved by the Board of Aldermen.
These are beyond, okay.
Correct, but I just want to make sure that I would include the city attorney in that, at least the initial meeting, to make sure that we don't stray.
Okay. Well, members of the Planning and Zoning Board, this is up for us to review. Do you have any comments? Do you think we'd be best off forming a subcommittee and hashing this out, or should we hash it out now? I'm all ears.
I move that we table it to form a subcommittee to hash it out.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so having heard a motion and having it seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Motion carries. Sonny, would you like to take charge of this?
Sure,
Okay, then you can get somebody to work with you, okay?
I will do that. I'll work with Jeff, and then we'll come up with.
Unless somebody want to raise their hand now, I mean, we can do it all
I'll
now.
come.
Okay.
Sir? Yeah? Okay, we've got two, Sonny and Harry. Perfect. Anybody else? Okay.
Mhm, good.
Okay. Now we come to
Marcus.
the discussion of the adoption of short-term rentals and subcommittee.
Mr.
And-
Chair, we have a new member who's come in, and Mr. Beatty took his seat.
Oh, okay.
Did I take a seat?
You sure did. I just want to, this is his first meeting, I don't want to leave him out in the public with Kip. Who knows what he'll do.
I'm sure I'm speaking to all members of the board to welcome you here, and we look forward to working with you, sir.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Marcus.
Morning, Marcus. Welcome. Hey, Mr. Marcus.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
Okay, I apologize for that, but I thought it was important.
No apology necessary.
Thank you. Okay, so on to item number 4.
We're on to item number 4, which is discussion
Short-term
of the adoption of the short-term rental subcommittee. And Ann Strout has been a yeoman, has already done a lot of work, and I'm going to hand over this discussion to her at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have formed, after discussion with Jeff Ruggieri and Scott Davis, the city attorney, we have formed an advisory committee that is going to do basically all of the hard work for getting the ordinance ready to be written. It will not be a formal committee, so it will not have to have roll taken. It will not have to have, look at Nadia starting to grin already. It will not have to have minutes taken. We will want to take our own minutes so that we have actionable items, but it will be a very low-key committee. We only have 4 members of the Planning and Zoning Board on the committee for the simple reason we do not want to have quorum. If we do, that turns into a formal meeting. That being said, when listening to what the Board of Aldermen said, once they figured out we had said we wanted to do this, we have 2 members of the Board of Aldermen on this committee, 4 members of the Planning and Zoning Board, and 4 members of the community. We will start our meetings on the 5th of December. A week from Thursday. I can't think what the date is. We'll have our first meeting, and we are going to sit down with the city attorney. He's going to explain to us the do's and the don'ts and the cans and the can'ts, so that we'll know where our parameters are and we will be able to start deliberation. First thing we're going to do is look at what other towns and cities in North Carolina are doing currently. This is an extremely fluid problem, changes almost daily, And instead of going back and doing research from 2, 3, 4 years ago that will turn out to be worthless, we're going to look at the current things and we'll move on from there. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Yes, I'm curious, is this going to be just for Ward 1 in a historic district, or is this going to be universal to the entire ETJ?
Right at this point, we're talking about doing the whole city. It's very unfair to do the downtown historic area and nothing else. There is a huge question about the ability for a town or city to say there will be no short-term rentals, there will be no vacation rentals in the town or city, for the simple reason that goes back to the constitutional rights to land use. So I think we have to be careful and tread lightly on saying, no, we can't have it anywhere. I thought Airbnb was going to be a real big tiger and they were going to sue everybody until last weekend when the debacle happened in, where was it, Colorado, where somebody rented an Airbnb.
Oh, yeah.
And they had such a large party, 3 people were shot. So that's going to change some things right off the bat that we don't have to worry about, but it's still something that we have to consider here as far as noise goes and overpopulation. Any other questions?
Could you list the people who are on the committee?
Certainly. Raymond Layton, Sonny Aluzzo, Don Black, myself from the Planning and Zoning Board, Nancy Stallings, Ben Beasley, Nancy Hollows, and Lori Ann Prill are community members, and Sabrina Bingle and Johnny Ray Kinsey are our alderman representatives. We may be adding one other person. I really like odd numbers on committees. It's much easier to get a vote that way. Where right now we have 10, we may be adding another one. I wish it could be one of you guys, but we have to be careful about that. Any other questions? Yes.
Can any members of this committee put any, ask questions?
Most certainly.
Okay, because I'm wondering how you're gonna work around covenants and HOAs, the warehouses set up for all these years.
You know the way the law reads, whatever the most restrictive of covenants or HOAs
Okay.
or zoning or whatever the most restrictive,
Yes.
that is the one that stands. So if there is an HOA or a deed covenant that says you can't, then you can't.
Okay, thank you.
And my understanding is that this committee is going to be coming back to the Planning and Zoning Board for us to make the referral for the Board of Aldermen to approve.
That is correct. We will take it then under advisement. We will be the ones that craft the ordinance. I have asked Jeff for permission for the Planning and Zoning Board to hold the public hearings to get this thing. Once it is crafted, it's going to be rough. And I think we need to let the city of New Bern tell us what they think and what they think needs changing. And if it is something that is viable, I think we need to pay attention to it. I've checked with several other cities. Edenton is in their 9th draft. So it's not going to be something that happens very quickly. I'm hoping, though, that we do such a good job that it will be well received to begin with.
I know that Ann and I have been discussing this for some time, and she has been doing yeoman's work, and she has really put a lot of effort into it, and I thank her personally for it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we
Mr.
come
Chair?
to... Yes,
One more question?
Yes.
Question. What is the function of this special committee?
To give you some history, in order to have a licensed bed and breakfast in New Bern, one must go through several steps within the city to become a bed and breakfast. There's a gentleman on Metcalf Street in the 500 block that decided he would like to be a bed and breakfast, and he went through all the proper steps. And when it got to be time to come before the Board of Adjustment, some of his neighbors spoke up and said, we don't want a bed and breakfast in our neighborhood. They then went to the Ward 1 Alderman, Sabrina Bingle, and told her what was going on and what they would like to see happen. Sabrina brought it up in a Board of Aldermen meeting and asked that Planning and Zoning look at it. We did at our last meeting. We voted that the ordinance should not be changed, and we said we wanted to study it and come up with something that would work.
Mhm.
It went back to the Board of Aldermen, and the Board of Aldermen voted to not have any bed and breakfast any place. Now, this was just the downtown historic area. And they're talking about 7 blocks. It maybe is a little bit more, but it's a very small area. The majority of New Bern, the way the ordinance reads now, cannot have a bed and breakfast. So we're fairly much okay, but we're even now. Nobody can have one. The problem with it is the constitutionality of it. So now we're going to take it under advisement. We have formed the committee. And any of y'all that want to come to the committee meetings, you just will not be sitting around the table. But if you have something to say, I'm sure we would be more than happy to hear what you have to say, because I know a lot of people on this board know a lot about this problem. So I would invite you to come anytime you want to. But that's where it stands right now. We're now starting the committee. We will start doing our homework, and hopefully we will come up with a new ordinance that will cover the whole city, will make everything on a level playing field, and fix it so that we don't have 9 bed and breakfasts lined up in a row, but we still allow New Bern to grow.
Question.
Yes.
Isn't that also, you're talking about the Airbnbs as well?
This is Airbnb.
Well, bed and breakfast and Airbnbs are a little bit different.
Well, the problem is if you want to be a licensed Airbnb in New Bern, you have to go through
The same steps.
all the steps. So I am using that term B&B. We are looking at Airbnb, we're looking at vacation rentals, and the new word right now is short-term rental instead of Airbnb. And that's defined as a rental that the owner lives in and rents out rooms for less than 29 days, and some of the things say 30 days. A vacation rental is the other thing, and that is an empty house that nobody lives in that is rented out to people on a regular basis. And those are the two main things we're going to be dealing with. We may look at bed and breakfast. It depends on how it fits into the ordinance, but right at this point it's going to be those two things mainly, because that's where the bone of contention is. Other questions?
And
Sir.
I missed the 2 aldermen who were on it.
Sabrina Bingle and Johnny Ray Kimsey.
Thank you.
Here. I don't have enough for everybody, but that didn't go well. I didn't realize we have so many people coming. I'm very sorry. But that'll give you an idea.
I'll pass this on.
Are there any more questions on this item?
Mr. Chair, just some additional information for Mr. Ballard or anyone else who's interested. As Ms. Shout said, our first meeting is November the 14th. Our next meeting after that will be 3 weeks after that on the 5th of December. After that, we'll be meeting bi-weekly. The meetings will be held 3 to 5 on those Thursdays in the Development Services Conference Room. And we'll
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
I'll send out an email of that also. So we'll be meeting bi-weekly, every other Thursday, from 3 to 5 in the Development Service Conference Room. The first meeting is on the 14th of November. The next one will be on the 5th of December.
Correct.
And then from there, and I think Ms. Shout, we're going to meet up until...
We're going to schedule meetings up through April.
Up through
I
April.
hope we're not there that long.
Oh, I just heard somebody from the public ask if these meetings open to the public. And these are working meetings,
Correct.
and my understanding, these are working meetings for us to work internally.
Yeah.
The public will have an opportunity to respond to this as it comes to review, and also during the public hearings as we are looking for input from the public.
Yeah, Ms. Shout specifically stated she wants at least 3 public hearings throughout the process.
At least.
Yeah.
And we do look forward to hearing what the public's concerns are.
Any other questions, Lorelei?
Hello? I say hello?
This now brings us to the discussion of vape shops, definitions, and zoning.
All right, so this is informational. We'll handle this in our December meeting, but on the 22nd of October, the Board of Aldermen issued a resolution, and I included that resolution in your packet, kind of outlines what we've been asked to do as the planning board. So essentially, they've asked us to create a definition of what a vape shop is, a tobacco shop, and to put that use into our table of permissible uses. So just to show it graphically to y'all, this is section 1515. This is right out of the, I know you can't see it, and I apologize. But this is our definition section of our land use ordinance. We will be adding definitions in here about what vape shops are, because we can't regulate them if we don't have a definition of what they are, which is what the problem is right now. From there, we've been specifically told to make a use for it. So this is our table of permissible uses, where we figure out if a use is allowed in a zone or where it's not. So we're going to create a use 2.240, which will be just under the last one right there. And it will be only allowed, there'll be a Z in the C3 and C3H zoning classification. So the intent here from the Board of Aldermen is to create a vape shop tobacco. We'll flush that out on what that is, and only allow that use in our commercial districts. Is right now in our commercial 3 districts, which is our most intense commercial zoning district. Right now, in theory, they could be in any commercial district, and the Board of Aldermen wants to limit where they can be placed. So we'll be bringing out. Staff has been doing research on what a tobacco shop is and what a vape shop is, and there's quite a few examples of what those are and what they can be. You think it's easy until you start reading about it, and then it breaks down into what are they selling and how much are they selling of it. So we're going to flush that out. We'll be presenting that to you on the 3rd of December. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that the board asked you to do this at their 22nd of October meeting. So, and if you have any questions, the resolution is in your packet. You can ask me now or later, but we'll be coming back with a good definition for y'all to discuss when we reconvene in December.
Are there any members of the board that have questions for Jeff concerning the definitions of tobacco vape and the plan restrictions in the land use ordinance for these shops?
This is the same item that we got in our email recently, right, from Nadia, right?
Correct.
Oh, okay, with that, okay, I do.
This is, I put this together just to graphically show what's going to be changing in our ordinance, and on a piece of paper in a resolution form. It may not really understand what's happening, especially for our new members. So I'll just try to make it clear for everyone what's going to happen is we're going to create a definition. We're going to put that definition in our table of permissible uses, and that's only going to be in the commercial 3H zoning categories as an allowed use.
I have a question.
Sure.
Does this have to do anything with the sickness that was being developed from these vape stores?
Absolutely. No, actually, no, not really.
Okay.
It's another gentleman came through here a few months ago with a rezoning, and stated that he was going to do a vape shop or tobacco shop, and that kind of got the community up in arms about it. So we are circling around not to preclude them from being anywhere in the city, but to actually point to where they can be instead of letting them proliferate in any commercial district. It's very normal. The table of uses recognizes that not every single use that's imaginable can be captured in the zoning districts. So we routinely update these things. For example, up until very recently, we didn't have a definition of a marina in the city of New Bern. So see what I'm saying, right? Two rivers here. We didn't have a definition of what a marina was until about 2 years ago. So these things happen. It's very seldom shocking.
Yeah, let me just add to what Jeff said. We, as members of the planning board, have responsibility for the land use ordinance, and we can make recommendations to the Board of Aldermen for such changes. And that's what this is partially about as well, that any changes to the land use ordinance usually originate with the Planning and Zoning Board, and we go over the language and make recommendations to approve such changes that the Board of Aldermen ultimately determine.
But that's it, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, so now we have some board member comments, and does anybody wish to make any comments right now? I know I would like to make some comments. Okay. The first comment I would like is, for some time, and it's been put on hold, that we've been working on a community impact study, which basically is an audit of all the public services capacity we have. Over the time I've been on the board, we have approved many very large developments, some with capacity of nearly 2,000 housing units, and I'm referring to West Craven. And we would like in my case, I would like to know what the capacities are for things like sewer, water, as well as other public services. So far, DOT has provided us with traffic studies and traffic capacities of many of our major roads throughout the area. Jeff is working with the Public Works on getting some of that information, and he's trying to get that right now for us to go forward. I do not know when we will be having meetings again, as there was staff considerations, but they're coming. Jeff's department is operating now near full capacity, and we would like to get that started. I think the most prudent thing going in the future, though, is wait till Jeff has the audits for these different numbers, and then we will return active meetings at that point. Is there anything you would like to add, Jeff?
Nope, no, I hear you, Mr. Chair. You'll see the results of some of that study in our next meeting when we review the Belle Oaks general plan. We will be looking at capacity numbers for streets, water, and sewer.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing that. Special guest. The next item I would like to address is, at the last Board of Aldermen meeting, there were some disparaging marks concerning this board here, for which we met with one of the aldermen, Jeff, myself, and Nadia was there. And we were told by that Board of Aldermen that she will be apologizing to us at the next public alderman meeting. As for myself, I look forward to working with this alderman for the best advantage for our community. And are there any other comments? Having heard none, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? We move second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes.